So it's bigger than expected
Yeah.
at fall. What does it mean for consumers?
Bit of Christmas cheer, isn't it? I'll try and be positive, and then I'll do the negative part of it, if that's all right.
Yeah, no.
So what does it mean? It means that prices are still going up, just not as much. And actually, if you delve into the figures, where we're seeing the softening is what they call it, where we're seeing the better figures is fuel and food. Food is still about 9%, which is very high, but things like bread and cake. So if you like cake, good news. It's a little bit of festive cheer, considering where we were
Christmas
this
cake.
time last year, exactly, which was, we hit a peak of 11.1%. Now, I will say, everybody has their own inflation figure, of course. What you buy will be different from what you buy and I buy, and so it'll be slightly different. But the overall picture is it is slightly better. Now, what will that mean? Well, all eyes are on the Bank of England as to what they're going to do. Are they going to keep interest rates higher for longer, which is really hitting homeowners, those with mortgages, those with debt?
An interest rate of 5.25%.
Exactly. Now, they held for the last 3 meetings. There is speculation it could go down. They've been pretty sturdy about the fact that, look, we are going to look at the wage figures particularly because they're higher than expected. And we're going to look at inflation. And the thing that they particularly look at is something called core inflation. So when you strip out all of the variable things like food and fuel, for example, that's the one. That has come down, but it's still quite high. And bearing in mind that headline figure, and this is where I get to the slightly negative things, is still almost double what the Bank of England targets, which is a 2%.
Just to a couple of people, because we said, what does it mean in layman's terms? And Francis said, even if the inflation rate goes down, it's still hard for most of us to survive. The cost of living crisis is crippling us, and this government has allowed it to happen. And that's the reality.
Look, make no bones about it. It is absolutely... While it looks like potentially light at the end of the tunnel, look, it really depends on your personal situation. Yeah. If you have a mortgage and these high interest rates are absolutely smacking you, but also the fact that... Think about those figures. Yes, fuel is sort of coming down, or it's not going up as much. Food as well, but they're still very high. And those on the lowest income spend the biggest proportion of their wages on those things. So it's hitting those on the lowest incomes hardest. We're expecting energy bills to go up next month as well. So look, we're not out of the woods yet. But
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Well, I told you I would start off.
Well, actually, and let's bring in another good friend of ours. Falling wholesale petrol prices is one of the reasons inflation is coming down. You've said that. So why, big question is, aren't the savings being passed on to you and I? I think another kick in the teeth for 37 million drivers, as does Howard Cox from Fairfield UK. Howie, lovely to have you on. We're still being punished, drivers, aren't we? Despite inflation coming down.
Absolutely right. It's always happens, doesn't it? When we actually mention the inflation figures, the next sentence is usually what's happening at the pumps. But it should be even lower. Pump prices are 10p higher than they should be. The wholesale prices are not being passed on enough to the retail prices. And I'm sorry to say this, but the government very much could do something about it. Back in July, the CMA, the Competitions and Market Authority, agreed to my pump watch scheme, which was basically a consumer price regulatory body, a bit like Ofcom, Ofwat, Ofgem, you name it. There isn't anything for 37 million drivers as such. And they agreed that we need it. But the government still haven't implemented it. And that's the problem we're having, is the government could actually bring inflation down further by reducing pump prices by at least 10p in terms of fuel duty and another 10p in terms of the wholesale price.
But Howard, we've then got the warning from Edmund King of the AA that actually we might be seeing fuel prices at the pump going up in the new year because of the ongoing turbulence in the Middle East, and particularly after companies like BP decided they couldn't use the Red Sea.
That's true.
You're absolutely right. Here we go again. We've got another geopolitical event. But the government could still actually put pump watch in place, and actually so we can get fair, honest and transparent pricing. We all want the retailers and the garages to earn a decent living, but for God's sake, pass on the correct wholesale falls to the retailers.
I mean, I'm so with Howard, Georgie. I don't understand it. These supermarket chains that have a monopoly, not just actually with food, we're talking about fuel as well. Why is the customer... I'm going to be very cynical. Howard will not be surprised, neither will you, Georgie. Maybe we're just going to sit on our hands for a couple of months, Sunak, and use it as an election booster in 2024.
Spot on.